In the tranquil hush of evening, as the world outside fades into the gentle embrace of darkness, we are beckoned into a realm where elegance dances with brutality, where honor is not just a word but a way of life. Welcome, dear viewer, to the enigmatic and often harsh world of feudal Japan, where the petals of cherry blossoms flutter down upon a society bound by the strictest codes and the sharpest consequences. Imagine, if you will, a life where your destiny is not yours to choose, but rather it is whispered into your ear by the echoes of ancestors long gone. In this land, you don't wake up to a choice. You awaken to a path already etched in stone, by birth, by blood, and by the decisions of those who've been dust for centuries. Here, your role in the tapestry of society is not a suggestion, it's an irrevocable sentence. Were you born into the esteemed lineage of a samurai? Oh, how fortunate you are now, the guardian of the blade, the master of the bow, and an expert in the 10,000 ways to sit properly in the presence of your lord. But what if your fate was less glamorous? Born a peasant? Then congratulations are in order for a life ankle-deep in mud, a life that your children and their children will inherit as their own. There is no resume to polish here, no entrepreneurial spirit to ignite. You are either samurai, peasant, artisan, or merchant. Once placed, you are anchored there for life. Attempting to ascend the social ladder in feudal Japan isn't merely frowned upon. It's a transgression that invites the most severe of punishments. You don't climb the ladder. You bow to it, acknowledging its unyielding presence. And let us not forget the Itia, the untouchables, those who handle death and decay. Society needs them, yet pretends they do not exist. They are the invisible hands that keep the wheels of daily life turning like ghosts with a purpose, their existence a silent acknowledgement of the world's darker necessities. Imagine for a moment you find yourself as a merchant in feudal Japan. It sounds respectable, doesn't it? You have coin in your pocket, a certain clink of prosperity. Yet in this world of rigid hierarchies, you're nearly at the bottom rung. Why, you might ask? Because you earn your living, not through sweat, but through shrewd dealings, which in the eyes of the nobility taints you with a whiff of moral ambiguity. Yes, you're too clever for your own good, too efficient to be truly respected. Meanwhile, the peasantry toil under the sun, their backs bent over rice fields. Their harvest is taxed so heavily that to yield too little is to court starvation, and to hide any grain is to invite accusations of treason. Heads roll with alarming regularity, a grim reminder of the price of survival. Then there are the samurai, draped in honor, yet perpetually on edge. They live in dread of the slightest misstep. A sneeze at the wrong moment could dishonor their lord, their lineage, their very existence. And what of the women? No respite for them either. Their destinies are dictated by the whims of fathers and husbands, their lives a script written long before they ever drew breath. Marry who you're told, obey whom you must. And perhaps if the gods are kind, you might learn the solace of poetry. So here you are, born into a role, handed a costume, and thrust upon the stage of society, ready or not. It's a performance that's both elegant and inescapable, a life where the very act of living is an art form. But before you even think of breakfast, there's a ritual to endure. Cleanliness in feudal Japan wasn't just a practice, it was an obsession bordering on the religious. Imagine starting your day not with a warm embrace of steam and soap, but with a plunge into the icy abyss of a stone basin filled with water drawn from a frigid well or stream. No heating, no negotiation. You splash your face and arms shivering as if the spirits themselves are chastising you for your mortal form. Soap only if you're wealthy, and even then, it's a harsh concoction of ash or rice, bran redolent of earth and toil. Imagine, if you will, the quaint simplicity of a rural bathhouse in feudal Japan, a sanctuary of cleanliness in a world where hygiene was as much a spiritual practice as it was a social necessity. The local bathhouse, if fortune smiled upon you with its presence, became not just a place for cleansing, but the very heartbeat of the community. Here, amidst the warmth provided by crackling firewood, the entire village converged, a sea of bodies, stripped bare, all pretense of privacy cast aside. Picture this, you standing shoulder to shoulder with your neighbors, your boss, your future in-laws, and perhaps even your landlord, all in the nude, engaging in this silent communal act of purification. The awkwardness hangs in the air, like the steam itself, yet you scrub your skin with care, soak in the shared waters. For cleanliness is not just a virtue here, it's a creed. But what if the bathhouse is but a distant luxury? Then the task becomes personal, intimate. You brush your teeth with salt or a twig, keep your nails meticulously trimmed, and air out your clothes regularly. This isn't for vanity, it's a shield against the stigma of uncleanliness, which could tarnish your spirit and your standing in society. Now consider the samurai, where the stakes of cleanliness soar to new heights. Imagine the constant, unyielding scrutiny of your lord, who might at any moment inspect you from head to toe. A dirty fingernail, a wrinkled robe, an odor detected during a bow, any of these could spell your doom. For women, the expectation was to embody the fragrance of cherry blossoms, to exhibit discipline through every strand of their meticulously styled hair. Bathing was not merely routine, it was a ritual performed with the precision of a military drill. Skincare and grooming were not just practices, but acts of defiance against the elements in the relentless march of time. All this so that one might labor at a rice mortar and still retain an air of dignity. So yes, feudal Japan was clean immaculately, but at what cost? Freezing water, endless grooming, and the ever-present soul-crushing awareness that someone was judging perhaps even your very foot hygiene. And what if you were born into the warrior class, the samurai? It sounds glamorous, doesn't it? Fancy swords, silk robes, poetic duels under blooming cherry blossoms. But delve into the fine print. Being a samurai was not about swinging a katana and shouting for honor. It was about perfection, about never ever screwing up. Imagine, if you will, a life where every breath is measured, every step taken with the weight of honor upon your shoulders. Your existence is not your own, but is instead woven into the very fabric of Bushido, the timeless path of the warrior. This code is so stringent that even the spirits of your forebears tread lightly their ancestral whispers, cautioning you at every turn. You do not merely live, you exist for the glory of your daimyo, your lord. His decrees are the unyielding laws of your world, his emotions the tempestuous climate in which you dwell. Your duty is to serve with such unwavering loyalty that the mere thought of causing him the slightest disappointment sends chills down your spine. No pressure indeed. Disobedience, dishonor, failure. These are not mere words, but the heavy chains that bind your soul. Dishonor lurks in the shadows, ready to pounce at the slightest misstep, speaking out of turn, casting an ill-timed glance during the serene act of tea ceremony. All these can tarnish your honor. And let us not forget, dishonor is not shrugged off like a cloak. It demands atonement, often in the most visceral final form. Osterianom seppuku. This ritual of self-disembowelment is not a metaphor, but a grim reality, a revered exit from this world for the shamed samurai. Picture the scene: you kneel, the room silent, the blade in your hand, and your resolve steeled. This act was not a rarity, but a respected, sometimes even celebrated way to preserve one's dignity. Imagine your lord handing you a short blade, ushering you into a quiet chamber with a nod that says, "You know what must be done." But your life isn't just about avoiding dishonor. It's also about constant, rigorous training. You must excel in swordsmanship, archery, the art of riding horses, strategy, the delicate strokes of calligraphy, and the poignant lines of poetry, all while maintaining an impeccable posture and a visage that speaks of duty rather than joy. Laughter too loud, fear too evident, emotion too raw. These are not mere faux pas, but deep, unforgivable stains on your character. Your attire is always precise, your sword gleaming, your conduct so impeccable it might make others question their own virtue. And should you ever raise your sword in anger, without just cause, insult someone above your station, or lose in a duel, you don't just lose face, you lose everything. Being a samurai isn't about glory, it's about disciplined silence and the art of living each day without a single misstep. So yes, you might look the part in your armor, but remember, one misplaced twitch of an eyebrow could undo it all. Ah, the existential dread of peasant life. You may not have been born into the ranks of the samurai with their gleaming swords and poetic flair, nor have you the luxury of a dramatic, ritualistic end. But here's the twist: your life, though devoid of nobility, is a vivid tapestry of survival and resilience. Imagine waking each morning not in harmony with nature, but because the relentless tax collector, the sun, does not wait. Your humble abode, a thatched hut, lacks doors, windows, and privacy, its openness inviting even the neighbor's goat to tread upon your bedmat. Breakfast. A stroke of luck might grace your table with a bowl of rice porridge, perhaps accompanied by some relic of last week's pickling adventures. If fate frowns upon you, your stomach must make do with a mere splash of river water, whispering to itself, "Not today, hunger." Off you trudge to the fields, those serene vistas of travel documentaries now revealed as soul-sapping mud pits. Here you spend your day planting, weeding, praying that today isn't the day bandits decide to visit. As dusk falls, you limp home only to find one of your oxen missing and the village headman eager to discuss your grain shortfall. Taxes, they are an unyielding force not paid in shiny coins, but in the very rice you toil to grow. Your family eats what remains a meager share if the harvest was unkind, or if some lord's nephew trampled your plot in a military exercise. And to voice your grievances, how quaint such audacity would see you whipped, exiled, or worse, silenced forever. Yet if fortune smiles, you might ascend to the revered, yet ignored position of village elder. Here your words still fall on deaf ears, but now they seek your counsel only to dismiss it moments later. And remember, escape is but a dream. You are bound to this village, a prisoner of rice with the seasonal gift of ankle rot. Festivals. They offer a brief reprieve, a moment to dance to, forget to momentarily break free from the chains of your existence. But as the music fades, the reality of your peasant life resumes with all its gritty, unyielding truths. In the haze of a week's worth of sake, you find yourself swaying in a circle with others, desperately trying to escape the looming dread of the planting season that is but 4 days away. Yes, you are the unsung hero of this land, the very backbone of its economy, the silent force that keeps the samurai fed, yet the one whom everyone seems to forget. And no, there are no days of rest for you, for in this era of feudal Japan, the creed is hard work, enduring generational toil, and keeping expectations so low they almost touch the ground. Hunger gnaws at you as it should, for you've been laboring since the sun first kissed the sky, tilling the earth, planting seeds, sweating under the sun's relentless gaze, and quietly refusing to succumb to the fatigue that beckons. Now it's time to eat, but here meals are not about savoring flavors or indulging in delicacies. They're about survival, about keeping the body moving, with the barest essentials, about not choking on a stray fish bone during a meal with your in-laws. If you're among the peasantry, your sustenance is rice. Rice at dawn, rice at noon, rice when the day fades into night. If fortune smiles, it's genuine rice. If not, it's barley masquerading as its more esteemed cousin. Perhaps a turnip or two graces your bowl, or some pickled radish if the gods are feeling particularly generous. Meat. That's reserved for the daimyo or for that unfortunate chicken whose gaze was too bold and thus met its untimely end. Fish might appear, but it's dried, salted, and could double as a tool to sharpen your teeth. Soup, often miso, is but a warm, salty broth with perhaps 2 floating leaves masquerading as nourishment, flavorful, in the same sense that seawater might be considered hydrating. Contrast this with the samurai who dine on better fare, yet they must wait until the lord, his guests, and anyone he wishes to impress have eaten. Thus their meals are often cold rice and soup served with a side of watching others enjoy their food, all while feigning honor in their delay. Everything here is dictated by the seasons, not for fashion, but out of necessity. Without refrigeration, without a global supply chain, what isn't harvested directly from the land simply does not exist. Winter, with its biting chill, subtly hints at nature's own suggestion for fasting. And should you by some ill fate suffer from food poisoning, medical care is but a hopeful whisper. The local cure: lie down and ponder upon your ancestors. You'll either recover or join them in the annals of history. Theft of food is not merely frowned upon, it's a grave offense. Should you dare to pilfer a mere bowl of rice, expect not a gentle reprimand, but a public spectacle of why one must never touch the daimyo's provisions. Tea, you might think, would offer solace in such times, but it's more a ritual than a refreshment. The tea ceremony, a delicate dance of posture, etiquette, and existential humility, serves less to quench thirst and more to honor tradition. Meals, therefore, are not just about sustenance, but are sacred, silent, and steeped in respect. Yet they are mostly bland, scant, and always contain that one crunchy enigma. And complaining out of the question, unless you wish for your next meal to be delivered through your nostrils. Imagine, after partaking in your modest bowl of perhaps fish soup, Someone at your table utters something utterly ridiculous. Perhaps your lord recites a particularly poor haiku, or your village elder fumbles his words, or your neighbor boasts of his cow's newfound meteorological prowess. For one fleeting reckless moment, you might consider correcting them. But don't in the rigid social tapestry of feudal Japan, your opinion is a dangerous luxury. Free speech. It's a myth here, a swift path to dishonor, exile, or a sudden career-ending decapitation. The social hierarchy is an unyielding structure where every word carries the weight of a boulder. Speak above your station and you're deemed impertinent. Criticize your superior and you're insolent. Even a poorly received jest skirts the edge of treason. Within families too, caution reigns supreme. A son does not interrupt his father. A wife does not correct her husband. And the daimyo questioning him is tantamount to desiring a swift journey to the afterlife, courtesy of a sword's sharp edge. Samurai trained in the art of measured speech maintain their composure even in anger, for a sharp tongue is more perilous than a blunt sword. Ah, the delicate dance of apologies in feudal Japan. Here a mere sorry won't suffice. It's an intricate ballet of humility and respect. Imagine yourself head bowed, possibly composing a verse that encapsulates your deepest regret, your hands offering a delicate bird or a finely crafted comb, your heart pounding with the hope that your gesture doesn't provoke further wrath. And beware, for even the slightest misstep in tone could spell disaster. A word too casual and you might be seen as flippant or worse, defiant. A misplaced jest and you could find yourself teetering on the edge of social oblivion. Laughter, that joyous sound, becomes a perilous act. To laugh with someone of higher standing might suggest an equality that does not exist, leading one to be mysteriously reassigned to a distant frosty land. In this world, silence often speaks louder than words. You learn to nod, to smile, to let your opinion remain a captive in the fortress of your mind. For here in feudal Japan, words are not just fleeting sounds. They are anchors that can drag down your social standing, your reputation, or even your lineage into the depths of obscurity. Now let us turn our gaze to the fabric of society, where fashion isn't a mere expression of self, but a silent declaration of one's place in the hierarchy. Your attire doesn't mirror your soul. It mirrors your station, your role, and your right to wield a sword without being apprehended. At the pinnacle, the samurai, clad in layers of silk, sometimes with armor beneath, always with an air of dignity. Their garments, with deep blues, earthy browns, and the occasional flash of blood, red whisper tales of battles won, of lives taken for slights, far less than a fashion faux pas. Ah, the swords. The samurai's dai show, a duo of long and short blades, transcends mere weaponry. It's a walking emblem of power and honor, a silent declaration of one's place in the intricate hierarchy of feudal Japan. To draw these swords in public is an act of desperation, a final stand when all else fails. Yet wear them amiss, and you invite the sharpest of corrections from society. Contrast this with the humble attire of the peasants, clad in the earth tones of brown, gray, and beige. These colors aren't chosen for their simplicity or aesthetic appeal. Rather, they are the hues of survival, of not having the luxury to indulge in dyed fabrics when every moment is a struggle. Their garments whisper, "I toil in the mud. This life wasn't my choice, but these are indeed my only sandals." Merchants, with their slightly finer threads, tread a cautious path. Their wealth whispers through the fabric of their clothes, yet they dare not shout it. Their attire must be rich, but not ostentatiously so, silk, yes, but in muted tones. Wealthy merchant families master the art of appearing just respectable enough to avoid the unwanted attention of a patrolling samurai. Artisans and craftsmen, on the other hand, dress with a focus on durability and practicality, their clothes a testament to their work rather than their wealth. To stand out is to be flawed, to invite scrutiny. And what of the women navigating the treacherous waters of grace and obedience? Their attire is a tapestry of folded symbolism. Each hairstyle, each kimono pattern, a coded message. Wear the wrong color at the wrong festival, and you've not only dishonored your household, but might just ignite a whisper war across the neighborhood. So while you might fantasize about moonlit strolls under cherry blossoms, exchanging whispered poetry beneath the soft glow of paper lanterns, perhaps envisioning a dramatic kiss between a samurai and a forbidden princess, but in feudal Japan, love is but a side quest, one that you're unlikely to see through to the end. Marriage transcends mere emotions. It's a tapestry woven from alliances, social standing, agricultural levies, and the honor of forebears. For the peasantry, matrimonial ties are not a matter of personal choice, but are orchestrated by parents, often with the village elder's sage nod. The notion of romantic compatibility, a luxury, not a necessity. Instead, what matters are strong limbs and sound teeth, the practicalities of survival. Elevate to the echelons of the samurai, and the stakes soar. Here, marriage morphs into a chess piece in the grand game of politics. Your spouse is selected not for love, but for the alliances they forge, the lands they secure, or the grudges they settle with the gift of a fine kimono. Happiness, a secondary concern to the stability that must endure, especially through the critical harvest seasons. Love letters, if exchanged, must be penned in the flawless art of calligraphy, adorned with the correct seasonal motifs, and passed covertly by a maid who knows all too well the secrets she carries. Women particularly find themselves with little voice in this marital dance. A samurai daughter betrothed at the tender age of 15 is schooled in the delicate arts of calligraphy etiquette and needlework, mastering the art of silent acceptance. Her role to bear sons pour tea and never under any circumstances fall for the allure of the flute teacher. True romantic love, with its clandestine glances and fervent avowals, belongs to the realms of poets' theatrical performances and the poignant tales of spirits. To taste love in feudal Japan, one must immerse in the no-drama of star-crossed lovers who in their despair transform into ethereal mist. And should one dare to deviate from the prescribed paths of matrimony, beware. Adultery invites exile, dishonor, or a swift end by the sword, delivered perhaps by one's own spouse, lord, or in-laws in a race to restore honor. Even among the samurai, taking concubines was customary, yet it merely multiplied the silent disappointments. Thus, love in this era was a clandestine affair, often with the wrong person, always fraught with pain and secrecy, a whisper in the wind that could never be openly acknowledged. In feudal Japan, love wasn't just a delicate flower forbidden to bloom. It was a perilous seed inconveniently planted in the harsh soil of life. Here, death wasn't some far-off shadow, but a daily companion as familiar as your neighbor, your workmate, or the roommate who perpetually defaults on rent yet never leaves. Retirement? No, here you plan not for a peaceful end, but for an inevitable, often abrupt exit. Death wasn't a tragedy, but a line in the play of life, rehearsed and expected. Take the samurai, for instance, those noble warriors who tread the earth with two swords and a personal death script. Should they lose a battle or their honor be insulted, or even if they spill sake on their daimyo's robe, their response was seppuku. Not in the privacy of their chambers, but in a public spectacle as meticulously performed as a tea ceremony, only with far more blood and less tea. But let us not think the peasants fared any better. A failed rice harvest, starvation. A village unable to meet its tax quota. Heads might roll to make a stark, brutal point. Drought, plague, or a bandit raid, choose your flavor of sudden end. And what defense had they against these calamities? Warm tea and a fervent belief in the curative powers of herbs. And bandits. They were as real as the earth beneath your feet, lurking everywhere, indifferent to your year-long labor on those precious Dion radishes. Travel was a gamble, the roads outside town so treacherous that the phrase, "maybe we'll visit your cousin next year," was less a promise and more a declaration of a desire to live. For women, childbirth was akin to rolling dice, with complications often leading to a grim outcome. Midwives offered what help they could, but surgical options were prayers and boiling more towels. And should a husband die in disgrace, a wife might be expected to follow him not in spirit, but in the most literal sense, with a dagger. And let's not overlook the very land itself, a stage set for natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, famines, all whispering the ever-present question, are you ready to meet your fate? Imagine, if you will, a world where your very existence hangs by a thread, where the earth beneath your feet could crumble at any moment, sweeping your life into the abyss. The only shield you have is a roof tied down with all the might of human ingenuity and a soul deeply rooted in spiritual acceptance. Yet the shadows grow darker still. You must face these perils with a serene face, a composed demeanor. To scream in terror or rail against fate, unthinkable, the epitome of disgrace. Instead, the revered hero bows to death, pens a poem, and meets his end as if attending just another awkward family dinner. Oh, how stunning feudal Japan appears, with its aesthetic beauty, yet mortality is woven into its very fabric, a constant silent guest at every gathering. Contrast this with today's world, where you're encouraged to chase your dreams, to carve out your unique identity, to live your truth. But in that bygone era, your truth was dictated by the clan's voice. Individualism, a warning sign. You were but a minor twig on an ancient, sprawling family tree, your sole duty to prevent any flames of scandal from igniting due to personal folly like voicing an opinion or daring to love a merchant's daughter. Your clan was your universe. It defined your identity, your reputation, your destiny. You were enmeshed in a complex tapestry of obligations, honor, and expectations so intricate it might as well be a divine ledger. Even the samurai, those proud, valiant warriors, did not battle for themselves. Their swords were unsheathed for their daimyo, their household, their ancestors. And should they fall, let it be in a manner that burnishes the glory of those who came before. To die with honor is noble, but to die in a way that casts even the faintest shadow over your clan. That's the nightmare that echoes through generations. Your actions ripple through time, reflecting on your father, your grandfather, perhaps even influencing how your cousin is perceived in a distant province. It's a legacy of honor, not of guilt. In feudal Japan, life was intricately woven into the fabric of association. Imagine, if you will, a burning desire to open a noodle shop fueled by an adoration for the art of cooking. How quaint, how endearing. Yet the destiny of your lineage dictates otherwise. Your family raises horses, and thus your future is tethered to the rhythmic brushing of hooves until the fates decree otherwise. Should your heart flutter towards painting what a noble pursuit, yet your brushstrokes are confined to the walls of the temple your kin sponsors under strict directives in an environment as silent as the grave. And beware the shadow of scandal, one misstep, a dalliance at the wrong moment, an inebriated outburst, or a poem laced with too much cheek, and the repercussions ripple through your clan like a stone thrown into a still pond. Your siblings ostracized, your mother, her heart sinking into despair. Your great uncle perhaps contemplating the ultimate sacrifice to cleanse the family's honor. You are not merely an individual, but a symbol, a pawn in a grand game, a walking liability. Yet should you navigate this treacherous path with grace, bow when required, and marry as dictated, your clan might just utter your name with a hint of pride. Ah, the feudal Japanese badge of personal achievement. Surviving the social hierarchy, the honor-bound systems, the taxing of rice. Congratulations, you've made it through. Now brace yourself for the whims of nature. Feudal Japan, a canvas of breathtaking beauty where snow-dusted mountains meet tranquil forests, where cherry blossoms paint the landscape in delicate hues, is also a relentless foe. The climate, it seems, has a vendetta against you. Begin with typhoons, those colossal storms that descend like irate deities, unleashing torrents of rain-fierce winds and testing the resilience of structures as fragile as rice paper. Roofs are ripped away, roads disappear beneath the deluge, and the rice fields you toiled over all season are now a gentle current flowing away. Then there are earthquakes, sudden, brutal, without a whisper of forewarning. Just a faint tremor, a fleeting second of existential dread, and your home might find itself in a new orientation. Survive the tremors and you still face the peril of fires, for everything, including your less than stellar choices, is made of wood. Flooding, too, is an uninvited guest at this perpetual banquet of natural calamities. Amidst relentless downpours, your village transforms into a mire of despair, a muddy concoction where homes stand like islands in a sea of sludge. The crops, once vibrant with life, now suffocate beneath the flood's embrace, drowning in their own fields. Animals, bewildered, stray from their usual path, their bleats and cries echoing a mournful tune through the rain-soaked air. And yet the landlord's demands remain unyielding, as if the rains themselves were not enough of a burden, now compounded with the cruel addition of interest on your taxes. Then, as if nature's cruelty knew no bounds, the sun emerges with a vengeance, scorching the earth for weeks without a drop of relief. The once lush fields turn into a parched, barren landscape, cracked and devoid of humor like a monk's wit. You turn to the heavens, beseeching the gods, performing ancient rites while casting envious glances at the neighbor's well, now a beacon of hope in this desolate drought. Winter arrives not with the charm of a snowy wonderland, but with a chill that seeps into your bones. Thin blankets offer little solace, and fires dwindle in the night, leaving you to huddle over a clay brazier, praying that frostbite remains out of fashion. Here, heating isn't a luxury. It's a communal struggle, a shared ordeal under the unforgiving sky. And let's not forget the unexpected guests at nature's relentless feast volcanoes. Japan, part of the fiery ring, hosts eruptions that can turn your world into an ashen wasteland, or an awkward realization that your sacred shrine is now merely a decorative rock garden. There's no FEMA, no national aid to scoop you from the ashes. If your house crumbles, you rebuild. If your food rots, you starve. And should the Lord's estate suffer the same fate, taxes remain due for disaster, in feudal Japan is not a reprieve from duty. In this land, nature isn't just a backdrop. It's a constant living testament that even the gods might be having a rough day. Power, responsibility, and blame cascade downwards like the very rivers that swell and flood. You, a mere peasant, exist under layers of authority, from the village headman to the samurai, then the daimyo, and up to the shogun, who perhaps whispers in the ear of an emperor, more ghost than ruler, draped in his finery. Even the samurai, fierce and sword-bearing, are but pawns in this grand hierarchical game. Imagine, if you will, the lives of those sworn to uphold justice. The samurai, who despite their noble title, are not the pinnacle of power, but rather the well-dressed middle managers of feudal Japan. They dedicate their existence to serving their lord, patiently awaiting commands and sporadically engaging in conflicts over territories they will never possess, for a glory that will forever elude them. Oh, the irony. In theory, they bask in honor, but in truth, their existence is but a life of katana-clad servitude. Then there are the daimyo, those formidable lords who command provinces and armies with an iron fist, appearing invincible. Yet their invincibility is a mirage, for when the shogun deems their ambition excessive, their castles face scrutiny, their correspondences are intercepted, and their aspirations are abruptly severed from their necks. And what of the shogun, the supreme military dictator, the mightiest in Japan? He rules indeed, but at what cost? His gaze must perpetually shift between court politics, clan allegiances, economic stability, and the ever-present threat of familial betrayal lurking within his own teacup. His reign is a waking nightmare of vigilance. Above all, the emperor, theoretically the highest in rank, wields no real power. He is akin to a revered artifact, untouchable, yet impossible to overlook. He blesses ceremonies, names eras, and composes poetry, all while likely struggling with personal finances. This rigid hierarchy is not one to be climbed. It is more like an overly obedient bonsai tree, pruned to stay in place. Ambition. It is not admired but feared. The higher one ascends, the nearer one comes to the cold steel of betrayal. Respect flows upward, authority cascades down, and orders are followed without question. To voice dissent is to court danger. Any whisper of overstepping one's station is not ambition, it's a death wish dressed in formal wear. So from peasant to merchant, from samurai to lord, someone above dictates your destiny, and someone below yearns for your downfall. In feudal Japan, your education, your opportunities, your very life's path hinges precariously on where you stand on this unforgiving social ladder. Spoiler, if you find yourself near the bottom, the ladder is less a path to ascend and more a tool to keep you in place, your feet firmly on the ground. At the pinnacle of society, samurai children are the fortunate ones, their lives sculpted by tradition and discipline. From tender years, they are immersed in a world of learning, their days filled with reading, writing, and the intricate dance of swordsmanship. They master etiquette, poetry, archery, and horseback riding, while also perfecting the ancient art of appearing perpetually unimpressed. Imagine at the tender age of 14, a samurai boy already crafting his death poem, while his counterparts are still wrestling with cursive. Their education, though rigorous, is imbued with purpose to serve, protect, and honor their clan. They delve into Chinese classics, absorb Bushido principles, and learn to bow with such precision that it's as if the gods themselves are taking notes. Then there are the children of merchants and artisans. Their education, while practical, lacks the grandeur of the samurais. They're schooled in mathematics record keeping and just enough reading to manage their trades. You won't find them pondering Confucius. Instead, they're calculating the cost of pickled turnips by the barrel. Is it practical? Absolutely. Glorious? Hardly. For peasant children, education is starkly different. Here, learning is survival. This is a hoe, their parents might say. This is rice. Now work before the sun outpaces us. They learn to farm to survive and to face the tax collector with a stoic demeanor. Literacy is a rare gem, schooling a luxury. The only scroll they might encounter is one crudely nailed to a tree announcing yet another tax increase. And what of the girls? Unless born into nobility, formal education is often out of reach. Their training focuses on domestic arts. Sewing etiquette, the delicate art of the tea ceremony, and the silent maintenance of a household. If luck smiles upon them, they might dabble in calligraphy or poetry, but only if it doesn't interfere with the spiritual precision required in folding laundry. In feudal Japan, education was not a journey of self-discovery or curiosity. It was about knowing your place and performing your role without question. The very thought of learning for the joy of it would make most elders clutch their sake in disbelief. Knowledge, the very essence of power, hoarded with an iron grip in the days of old. Imagine, if you will, the enchanting realm of feudal Japan, where every breathtaking curve of a fan, the delicate placement of a teacup, was not just art, but a testament to ancestral reverence. Yet here lies the rub. To falter in this dance of decorum is to invite the whispers of the village, not in a playful, coquettish manner, but with the weight of judgment. Consider the tea ceremony an act seemingly serene, a tranquil interlude. But peel back the layers and you find a stage set with invisible traps. Each movement is a step in a choreographed ballet where timing is everything. The guest must sit, just so turn the cup not once, but twice, murmur thanks with a humble heart, and sip in silence. All the while their mind races, have I bowed too soon? Too late? Was that too enthusiastic? A single misstep, and the room might as well echo with the clanging of a gong, marking your faux pas as either awkward or, heaven forbid, a blemish on your family's honor. And then there's the art of calligraphy, a beautiful expression, right? Oh, how wrong you are. It's a gauntlet testing not just your skill, but your very essence. That brush stroke isn't merely ink on paper. It's the mirror of your soul's posture. A messy script. You might as well hang a sign around your neck proclaiming your emotional turmoil and your ineptitude at bowing. Poetry, too, treads a perilous path. Writing a haiku is not just an act of creativity. It demands the correct season, the proper paper and metaphors that weave nature with your inner world, but never too personal, never too fervent. Too bland, you're labeled as lacking in refinement. Too cold, your spirit is deemed frigid, out of harmony with the world around you. In feudal Japan, culture wasn't just a way of life. It was a performance where every act, every gesture, was a potential misstep in a delicate dance of social standing and personal honor. The moon viewing party, an event where subtlety and grace are the unspoken rulers of the night, and here you stand too clever by half showcasing your intellect like a peacock its plumes. But beware, for in this delicate dance of culture, such flamboyance might just earn you a cold shoulder at the moonlit gathering. Culture in feudal Japan was not a pastime for leisure. It was a high-stakes performance where one's very essence was on trial. Beauty wasn't something that came easily. It was a war waged in the softest of silks. Should your caban arrangement dare to defy tradition, pray that the gods look kindly upon your bonsai, for the stakes were high. Reflect on all we've explored, the rigid hierarchy, the meticulous hygiene, the sacrosanct honor, the relentless rice. Could you truly endure even a single day in this world? Not due to fragility, mind you, but because this society wasn't crafted for mere survival. It was engineered for submission, for precision, for a quiet, unyielding obedience. Every gesture, every bow was a test of loyalty, of etiquette, of reciting the perfect seasonal greeting with just the right emotional inflection. Fail these tests and the repercussions were severe. At best, public humiliation awaited. At worst, a ritualistic end. There were no vacations from this script of life, no chance to simply be oneself. You were born into your role, given your lines, and expected to perform them with a deadly elegance until your last breath. To stray was not an act of bravery, it was an act of peril. In this world, the individual was but a footnote. The clan that lord the land, these were the true protagonists. If you were a samurai, you bore the legacy of centuries with the grim possibility of reciting poetry before committing seppuku. If a peasant, your days stretched from dawn to dusk, your back bending like a question mark over the unforgiving soil, praying for favorable weather and a lenient lord. And if you were a woman, your existence was a meticulously orchestrated ballet of grace, silence, and sacrifice. But what of the heart in such a world? Where does one find the space to dream, to love, to simply be? Had you been anyone else, the system would have ensnared you, binding you to the place you were born. Feudal Japan, with its breathtaking landscapes and intricate artistry, was a vision of unparalleled beauty. The architecture whispered tales of elegance, the rituals sang of tradition and poetry, painted the world in strokes of emotion. Yet this beauty was not without its price. It demanded a discipline so rigid it could shatter bones, a respect so total that it consumed one's very essence. Could you truly survive there? Imagine you might speak out of turn, laugh a little too loudly, or unwittingly cross a threshold with the wrong foot. You would forget to bow, ask forbidden questions, or dare to envision change. These acts alone would brand you an enemy of the established order. But the brilliance and the tragedy of feudal Japan was its design. It was crafted not for ease, but for endurance. In an era where women were scarcely permitted to voice themselves, let alone lead, Artemisia of Caria stood as a paradox. By all rights, she should have been an impossibility, a woman commanding an army, plotting wars with the titans of her time. Yet there she sat, adorned in the dual mantles of queen and naval commander, navigating the turbulent waters of power. Artemisia ruled Halicarnassus, a city nestled on the southwestern coast of what we now call Turkey, a vassal under the vast Persian Empire. This city was but a piece in the mosaic of territories often pulled by the orbits of greater powers. But Artemisia did not merely inherit her throne. She made it a force to be reckoned with. Greek by heritage, Persian by allegiance, and inherently a woman, each aspect of her identity bore significant weight in an age ruled by iron and testosterone. Her father likely of Carian origin and her mother from the island of Crete together, they sculpted a woman who defied the very norms that sought to confine her. Upon the demise of her husband, rather than yielding power to a male heir, Artemisia boldly seized the reins of authority. This act alone was a whisper of defiance, yet her ambitions stretched beyond mere governance. She yearned to conquer, to etch her name into the annals of history. When Xerxes, the great ruler of an empire vast as the horizon, launched his fabled assault on Greece around 480 BCK, Artemisia did the unimaginable. She volunteered for war, not to mend wounds or offer distant prayers, but to command ships to face death head-on. She furnished 5 of her own vessels, swift, sleek, deadly, and personally led them into the maelstrom of battle. And Xerxes, whose dominion spanned from the sands of India to the banks of the Nile, did not merely tolerate her presence, he revered her counsel, valued her strategic mind. It was audacious, some might say reckless. A Greek fighting for Persia, a woman aboard a warship, scandalous, unthinkable. But Artemisia knew the game she played. Her motivations were not rooted in loyalty to blood or empire, but in survival and the pursuit of power. In a realm dominated by men with swords, she did not seek permission. She constructed her fleet, sailed into history, and challenged anyone to stand in her way. By aligning with Xerxes, Artemisia effectively waged war against her own kin, the Greeks. This choice raised more than eyebrows. It sparked a firestorm of whispers, accusations of betrayal. To the Greeks, she was a traitor, dressed in the finest robes, a queen-turned-mercenary, trading her heritage for a seat at a foreign king's table. Yet Artemisia remained unruffled. Indeed, she doubled down, sailing into the campaign with the confidence of one who belongs at the high table. Why should she not? In her veins flowed not just the blood of lineage, but the fierce spirit of conquest. Here was a woman who, in the shadow of giants, stood tall, her gaze fixed on the horizon, her heart set on legacy. In the swirling maelstrom of Persian might, Artemisia emerged not just as a figure of intrigue, but as a beacon of unyielding honesty amidst a sea of sycophants and hardened warriors. Xerxes, accustomed to the fawning adulation and the brutal efficiency of his court, found in her a rare gem, truth unvarnished and piercing. She did not pander to his desires, but instead delivered what his empire desperately needed: unfiltered insight. In the grand council chambers where generals adorned with medals and satraps, with boots stained by the blood of conquest, gathered Artemisia's voice rang clear. Her advice, sharp and strategic, often carried a forewarning that many bloated with pride were too blind to heed. Before the fateful clash at Salamis, she implored Xerxes with the urgency of a prophet. Do not engage the Greeks in these narrow straits where your numbers mean nothing. Wait room. But alas, Xerxes, ensnared by flattery and hubris, chose to ignore her counsel. That decision would echo through history, a haunting reminder of what could have been. Among her Persian peers, Artemisia's presence was a complex tapestry. Commanders, their mustaches bristling with indignation, found her authority an affront. Here was not just any woman, but a Greek woman audacious enough to challenge the status quo to command her own fleet with a precision that sent shivers down the spine of seasoned warlords. She was no mere symbol or decorative figure. She was there to conquer, to win. This reality unsettled those who had built their lives around the art of war. Back in Greece, her name was whispered with a mix of fear and fascination. Herodotus, the chronicler from Halicarnassus, penned her story with a blend of awe and skepticism, as one might describe a mythical creature. Was she a Medusa clad in armor, or a misunderstood visionary whose mind outpaced the men around her? Artemisia was many things. Loyalist, strategist, traitor, visionary. But above all, she was a political creature who grasped a fundamental truth: in the crucible of war, identity is malleable. Only power endures. If there was ever a stage that tested this, calculation all wrapped into one audacious act. As the Persian fleet, swollen with hubris and numbers, faced off against the Greek navy in the narrow straits near Athens, a pivotal moment in the Greco-Persian wars was upon us. This was no ordinary clash. It was the Battle of Salamis, where the fate of empires hung in the balance. Artemisia, a beacon of brilliance and boldness, had previously cautioned Xerxes against engaging the Greeks in these treacherous waters. She foresaw with keen strategic insight that the Greeks' superior agility and intimate knowledge of the terrain would render the Persian advantage in numbers meaningless. Yet Xerxes, drunk on his own pride and the sheer size of his fleet, brushed aside her sage advice, yearning instead for a spectacle of victory. Oh, what a spectacle he received. The battle erupted, a maelstrom of chaos, where Persian ships collided in disarray, their formations crumbling like sandcastles against the tide. Greek triremes, swift and deadly, darted between the faltering giants of Persia, turning the sea into a theater of slaughter. Amidst this turmoil, Artemisia, aboard her flagship, navigated through allies and adversaries alike, her mind racing for survival. Then, in a moment that would echo through history, she made a move as shocking as it was cunning. Pursued by a relentless Greek ship, Artemisia ordered her vessel to ram and sink a Persian ship, not just any ship, but one belonging to an allied king. This audacious act was so unexpected that the Greeks, presuming she must be an ally, ceased their pursuit, allowing her to slip away unscathed. From his vantage point on a hilltop, Xerxes, witnessing this, turned to his aides, his voice tinged with a mix of shock and admiration. My men have become women, and my women have become men. Artemisia's maneuver was not merely an act of survival, it was a masterstroke of strategy, misdirection, and cold-blooded calculation. In sacrificing a friendly ship, she not only saved herself, but also turned the tide of the battle, proving that, in war as in life, sometimes the most unexpected moves are the ones that define destiny. Amidst the chaos of battle, Artemisia's mind raced, her heart pounding with the weight of imminent decisions. With the fate of her ship, her crew, and perhaps her own existence hanging in the balance, she made a choice that was as controversial as it was brutal. In that fleeting moment, she read the battlefield like a seasoned oracle, and her split-second decision carved a path through the tempest of war, saving her vessel from the jaws of destruction. While many Persian commanders met their end or fell into disgrace that day at Salamis, Artemisia returned not as a vanquished leader, but as one of the few Xerxes still held in high regard. The Persian fleet, now a shadow of its former glory, retreated from Salamis battered and humiliated. Ships were lost, morale crumbled, and the once unassailable myth of Persian naval supremacy was shattered. For countless commanders, this marked the commencement of their downfall. Yet for Artemisia, it was an unexpected victory. Amidst the wreckage of a disastrous campaign, She stood out as the epitome of competence, having warned the king acted decisively and emerged unscathed. Xerxes in his defeat took note. Back on Persian soil, nursing the wounds of a crushing defeat, the war machine of Persia needed to pivot. In an uncharacteristic display of vulnerability, Xerxes turned to Artemisia, not merely as a token of his court, but as his most trusted advisor. His question was deeply personal, a plea for guidance. What should he do next? Artemisia, with her characteristic bluntness, delivered an answer that no emperor steeped in pride would wish to hear. Retreat, she counseled. Return to Persia and leave Mardonius in command of the campaign in Greece. You've achieved your vengeance. Athens lies in ashes. Do not tempt fate further. Her message was clear, and astonishingly, Xerxes heeded her advice. The king, who had often dismissed his counsel, now followed the counsel of this singular woman. This moment did more than confirm Artemisia's bravery. It showcased her lethal political acumen. She knew when to engage, when to mislead, and crucially, when to withdraw. Her power was not derived from sheer might, but from a profound understanding of the tides of power and the art of survival. Artemisia's journey was one carved from a rare clarity, a quality scarce among those who wear crowns or wield swords. In the wake of tumultuous times, she was bestowed the solemn duty of safeguarding Xerxes' sons, a testament to her esteemed status. In the intricate dance of ancient courts, such a trust was not easily given. It was reserved for those whose allegiance was as strong as steel and whose discernment was beyond reproach. Here was Artemisia, born on the edges of an empire now standing boldly at its very core. Returning to Halicarnassus, she was no longer a queen shadowed by doubt, but a figure of undeniable significance. Her legend began to take root, spreading like the finest of vines. She was no ordinary ruler. She was the one who faced empires without flinching, who chose the path of war over silence and safety, only to return more formidable than before. While her military prowess brought her fame, Artemisia's legacy was not solely forged on the battlefield. It flourished in the narratives of those who penned her story, particularly in the words of Herodotus, the so-called father of history, born in the very city she governed. This geographical serendipity lent an almost mystical closeness to his recounting. He wasn't merely chronicling a distant figure, he was writing about his queen. Yet Herodotus did not depict her as a mere symbol of virtue or vice. He portrayed her as a rare gem in the annals of history, competent, calculating, and captivating. In his vivid account of the Battle of Salamis, Herodotus captures not just her bravery, but her chilling pragmatism, the sinking of an allied ship, the cunning escape amidst Greek chaos, the sheer brutal brilliance of her strategy. Through his words, Artemisia transcends the role of a mere commander. She emerges as a paradox, a figure both revered and feared, admired, yet suspected. How does one reconcile such contradictions? In her, we find a leader whose actions echo through time, challenging us to understand the depth of her resolve and the complexity of her character. Ah, the journey of Artemisia through the annals of history, a tale not merely of power, but of profound wisdom and foresight. She lived not in the glaring light of recognition, but rather in the subtle shadows cast by the towering figures of men like Xerxes and Mardonius. Yet her light was undeniable, outshining those who were lost in their own hubris, their ambitions as murky waters in which they drowned. Artemisia, however, navigated these waters with a grace and acumen that seemed almost otherworldly. Oh, how rare is such wisdom, particularly when it blossoms from a woman in an era that mistakenly equated femininity with fragility. Herodotus, the chronicler of her time, was undoubtedly captivated by her enigma. She did not conform to the expected roles of her society, nor did she fit neatly into the historical narratives historians so love to construct. She was no rebel, yet she defied. Not a feminist, for the term was unborn, but she subverted the patriarchy through sheer competence. Her legacy, unlike the ostentatious monuments or golden effigies of her male counterparts, was woven into the fabric of stories, whispered tales that acknowledge her superiority. In councils of war, she was the mind that outthought. On the battlefield, the strategist who outmaneuvered. In the realm of politics, the presence that outlasted. While the men of her age required scribes to keep their memory alive, Artemisia's story was immortalized in the very breath of those who spoke of her. And as Herodotus penned her tale, he was not merely chronicling history, he was solving a riddle wrapped in the enigma of a queen. Her name Artemisia did not fade into obscurity with her passing. It resurfaced, a testament to her enduring influence in the form of another Queen Artemisia, the second of Caria, likely a descendant who also ruled Halicarnassus. Though she did not lead fleets into battle, her mark on history was just as indelible, for she commissioned one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, a towering marble edifice that would stand as her testament to time. In the heart of ancient Halicarnassus, a tomb emerged not merely as a tribute to sorrow, but as a bold declaration, a monument to identity, and an enduring symbol of the formidable influence wielded by the first Artemisia. This structure, commissioned by Artemisia II for her husband and brother Mausolus, stands as a testament to the tangled web of dynastic politics, where familial bonds intertwined with power plays in a dance as old as civilization itself. But was it only about grief? Hardly. This mausoleum was a statement, a beacon of legacy. Historians have long pondered the lineage linking these two Artemisias, mother and daughter, aunt and niece, or perhaps not related at all. Yet the name Artemisia had become synonymous with might, intellect, and audacious governance. The original queen's legacy had so deeply permeated the soul of Halicarnassus that it became an armor for future generations to don. Consider this: the very word mausoleum we use today springs from this stone, this grief, this grand political theater. The later Artemisia, while known for her mourning, was also a ruler of considerable prowess, continuing the lineage of female leadership in a region where such a phenomenon was far from commonplace. Let us not overlook the foundational figure, the first Artemisia, who was not just a queen, but a naval commander, an advisor to Xerxes, navigating the complex waters of the Greek world with the finesse of an insider and the perspective of an outsider. Without her, would the name Artemisia have faded into obscurity? Would Halicarnassus be but a whisper on the winds of history? Instead, it became a lighthouse illuminating the path of two women who sculpted history with their sheer audacity. Their stories, though centuries apart, resonate in a harmonious dialogue across time, one with ships, the other with stone, both with names that history dared not forget. Artemisia's narrative has always existed in the interstices between empires, genders, between myth and truth. And nowhere does this duality shine brighter than in the mausoleum, where love, loss, and legacy converge in a spectacle of enduring human emotion and ambition. Her legacy, like a tapestry woven with threads of intrigue and reinterpretation, has been debated, twisted, and reimagined through the corridors of time. Was she merely a Persian marionette, a betrayer of Greek heritage, or did she play a grander game of chess while others clashed with steel? To the Persians, she was a beacon of loyalty, one of the few who offered wise counsel and distinguished herself in battle. Xerxes' trust in her, surpassing even his seasoned generals, speaks volumes of her political acumen and her unyielding poise under duress. In their eyes, her allegiance was not just honorable, but heroic. For the Greeks, however, the picture was painted with strokes of complexity. Many saw her as a defector, someone who had abandoned her Hellenic lineage to align with an Eastern adversary. Yet even Greek historians like Herodotus could not mask their admiration for her intellect and strategic cunning. She was a reflection of their own contradictions, proving that not all Greeks were unified in their cause, nor were all Persians cast as villains. She blurred the lines that war sought to define. And what of today? Historians and enthusiasts grapple with her essence. A feminist icon before the term existed, perhaps a paragon of astute leadership in a world designed to shut her out. Absolutely, her legacy captivates not because she conformed to the archetype of ancient queens, but because she shattered it. In military annals, she is a rare citation, a woman commanding warships in antiquity. In literary and political discussions, she symbolizes reason amidst an era of arrogance. In popular culture, her name occasionally echoes, sometimes distorted, often romanticized, but always unmistakable. But here lies the crux of Artemisia's story. She did not concern herself with legacy in the manner we do today. She wasn't crafting a persona or sculpting her image for posterity. She was quite simply navigating the tumultuous seas of power, not with the intention of leaving a mark, but with the necessity of survival and influence. Her actions, her decisions, were the ripples that continue to stir the waters of history, challenging us to look beyond the surface of what we believe we know. As she navigated the treacherous waters of her existence, she was not merely trying to survive, she was striving to rule to triumph against all odds. And this, dear reader, is what renders her tale so indelible, so captivating. Her story was not sculpted by vanity or myth-making. No, it was forged in the crucible of hard, controversial, and most often righteous decisions. She was neither a daughter of Persia nor a child of Greece. She was a sovereign of her own destiny. As the sands of time flowed, Artemisia's saga did what all epic narratives do: it evolved. She transcended the realm of mere history to become myth, metaphor, and occasionally a figure of dread. Playwrights and scribes, with their boundless creativity, reshaped her at will. In some yarns, she emerged as a cruel enchantress. In others, a warrior queen driven by an insatiable thirst for blood. Yet the true Artemisia, the strategist, the pragmatist, the enduring survivor, lay buried beneath layers of fantastical embellishments and fear. Why did this transformation occur? Because men in their confusion and perhaps discomfort couldn't fathom her. Here was a woman issuing commands, standing unflinchingly in the face of war, daring to tell kings they erred and backing it up with proof. Such audacity did not sit well with the sensibilities of the ancient world. So what did they do? They did what storytellers have always done. When confronted with an unmanageable woman, they rewrote her story. Consider the absurdity of one tale where she supposedly fell desperately in love, only to leap from a cliff in unrequited despair, a far cry from the iron-willed naval commander we know. Yet it served the narrative need to transform strength into tragedy. Another account depicted her as a venomous schemer, more sorceress than sovereign. This pattern persists through history when a woman rises to power through her intellect, or daring future generations either romanticize her into a damsel or vilify her into a villain. Artemisia, alas, received both treatments, neither of which captured the essence of her true unyielding spirit. She governed not with allure or mysticism, but with a piercing vision, unwavering logic, and a calculated brilliance that chilled the spines of her adversaries. She navigated a world dominated by men playing by her own audacious rules and emerging victorious. This, more than anything, struck terror into the hearts of those who followed her. For if one woman could achieve this, who could say others would not follow in her footsteps? Even today, adaptations often misrepresent her essence. Take Hollywood's portrayal in 300 Rise of an Empire, where she is cast as a vengeance-driven femme fatale. Entertaining, undoubtedly. True to her spirit, hardly. Yet the fact that she still captivates, still compels reinvention, speaks volumes. Her legacy is not merely alive, it bites back. The woman they feared did not perish. She transformed into myth, into memory, into the persistent, unsettling query that history keeps asking. What if there had been more women like Artemisia? When Artemisia of Korea disappeared from the annals of time, she did not fade from history. Instead, she morphed, her influence spreading like the wake behind a mighty warship long after her last voyage. There is no grand mausoleum to mark her final rest, no statues to capture her likeness. And yet her presence lingers deeply inscribed in the very sinews of history, murmured in the dusty pages of ancient scrolls, and debated fervently in the chambers where historians grapple with how she accomplished the seemingly impossible. Artemisia's life was nothing short of miraculous. She commanded when women were meant to be silent, fought in battles where they were expected to stay home, and offered counsel where they were to be seen, not heard. And yet she was not just tolerated, she was revered. This perhaps is her most extraordinary feat, not merely surviving as a woman in power in the ancient world, but earning a reluctant respect that made even her foes hesitate. Centuries on her name remains a paradox, revered yet shrouded in mystery. She isn't a household name, but her impact, her defiance of the norms, continues to echo through the corridors of time, challenging us to imagine a world where her like was not the exception, but the rule. In the annals of history, Cleopatra or Joan of Arc often seize the limelight with their legendary allure, yet perhaps it's fitting that Artemisia sought not the glow of myth. No, she pursued tangible outcomes, her reality grounded not in the romanticism of tragic love or divine beauty, but in the gritty reality of leadership strategy and pragmatism. Her saga unfolded not in the melodious lines of poetry, but in the hushed tension of war rooms, the confined spaces of ships, and the penetrating gaze of a king who chose to heed her counsel. Today, her narrative beckons us to reevaluate, not merely as a story of a woman navigating a man's domain, but as a profound reminder that valor doesn't always brandish a sword or don a crown. Sometimes it occupies the fringes of power, voicing the unspeakable, and charges headlong into turmoil. Artemisia required no saving, no rewriting. What she demanded, what she still merits, is to be remembered in her true essence, sharp, formidable, and brilliant. In a realm sculpted by men, she carved her own path through treacherous waters, against the pull of tradition, and amidst the haze of conflict. As long as vessels cut through the waves and history echoes the voices of those who dare to speak out when silence would be their shield, Artemisia of Korea will forever resonate. Before the era of lenses and satellites, before Copernicus dared to reorder the heavens humanity possessed but two instruments to unravel the sky's mysteries, the unadorned eye and stone. And yet this was sufficient. Civilizations across the ancient world turned their gaze upward, not just in awe, but with purpose. The stars were not mere ornaments, they were calendars, navigational aids, deities, and oracles. Thus commenced the most ancient of sciences, astronomy. Before it was named, it was an essential tool. Farmers needed to know when to sow their seeds, sailors how to navigate, priests when to perform sacred rites. In the quietude of a starlit night, a profound ritual unfolds at the perfect celestial juncture. Astronomers, indistinguishable from priests, kings, or mathematicians, were the revered architects of time. But without the aid of telescopes, how did they achieve such precision? They constructed temples not merely as places of worship, but as sanctuaries for celestial observation. Imagine the colossal edifices like Stonehenge in England, Nabta Playa in Egypt, and the majestic pyramids of Mesoamerica. These were not merely tombs or altars. They were sophisticated observatories meticulously aligned with the celestial dance of sun, moon, and stars. These structures were engineered to encapsulate specific light patterns during solstices and equinoxes, transforming sacred architecture into a canvas of astronomical purpose. Take, for instance, the great temple of Amun-Ra at Karnak in Egypt. It was strategically positioned so that on the summer solstice, the sun would ascend precisely between its grand pylons, a divine alignment. The Maya at Chichen Itza crafted El Castillo, where the equinoxes bring forth a serpentine shadow slithering down its staircase in a breathtaking display of cosmic harmony. In India, the Jantar Mantar stands as a testament to human ingenuity, its vast stone instruments enabling astronomers to track celestial bodies with astonishing accuracy. These architectural marvels were no accidents or mere guesses. They were deliberate, data-driven masterpieces of cosmic engineering. This was a global phenomenon, from the Andes to the Nile, from Babylon to Beijing. Humanity was not just building with stone, they were aligning their constructions with the whispers of starlight, meticulously charting the heavens' intricate movements. The sky was not merely observed, it was measured, mapped, and woven into the very essence of their urban landscapes. Long before glass lenses could amplify the cosmos, these civilizations etched the rhythm of the stars into stone in silence, with a precision that still astonishes. In the sun-drenched floodplains of ancient Mesopotamia, the Sumerians gazed upwards, seeing not just stars but the very structure of the universe. Around 3000 BCE, they began not just to tell stories, but to understand and replicate the patterns of the cosmos in their daily lives. The heavens above, a celestial dance of stars and planets, were not left to chance for the Sumerians. Oh, how they marveled at the sky. To them, it was not a chaotic void, but a cosmic schedule, a divine timetable that demanded their careful interpretation. Imagine, if you will, these ancient astronomers, the first to peer into the vastness of space with eyes unassisted by modern tools, yet they saw order where others saw randomness. They were the architects of celestial mechanics, the ones who discerned that the sun, moon, and planets moved not in chaos, but in the rhythm of cosmic clocks. From this meticulous observation, they birthed one of the earliest known calendars, ingeniously dividing the year according to the lunar cycle. How effective, how poetic was their method for tracking the ebb and flow of agricultural and ritual life. And in their genius, they gifted us the sexagesimal system, a base 60 counting method that whispers of ancient wisdom every time we count seconds in a minute or degrees in a circle. Without the aid of telescopes, they ascended the ziggurats, those grand step towers reaching towards the divine. From these sacred heights, the priest astronomers, known as the Umanu, the learned ones, recorded with clay tablets the celestial events. Venus's emergence on the horizon, the moon's crimson blush during an eclipse, or the reappearance of star clusters after months of absence, all meticulously noted. Theirs was a science intertwined with spirituality, where the sky was both divine and predictable. Over millennia, this stargazing tradition would transform into a more systematic pursuit. Their descendants, the Babylonians, would build upon this foundation, creating vast star catalogs, predicting eclipses with uncanny precision, and naming constellations that still twinkle in our night sky today. But let us not forget it all began with the Sumerians scribbling in cuneiform the first astronomical records known to humanity. In their world, the gods moved in patterns, and understanding these patterns was not just science. It was a profound communion with the divine. How could one not stand in awe of such a legacy where the study of the stars was a blend of the sacred and the scholarly? Ah, the stars. How they've whispered secrets to humanity since time immemorial. Imagine the Sumerians not merely gazing in wonder, but measuring, cataloging, and aligning their very existence with the celestial dance above. They ignited the spark of astronomy, but it was the Babylonians who fanned these flames into a blazing inferno of precision. By the zenith of their empire, around 1800 BCE, Babylonian astronomers were no longer passive observers. They became predictors, charting the heavens with meticulous care. Eclipses, planetary conjunctions, the retrograde motion of Mars, these were not mere spectacles, but phenomena to be logged, calculated, and anticipated with astonishing regularity. They didn't just guess, they calculated with a fervor that transformed raw observation into a sophisticated science. Their legacy inscribed on clay tablets now known as the Enuma, Anu, Enlil, and the Malapan. These were not mere records, but the essence of the cosmos laid bare. Line upon line of celestial movements detailing when Venus would ascend, how long it would grace the sky, or when a solar eclipse might cast its shadow upon the earth. These tablets were in essence the world's first almanac, a testament to human curiosity and intellect. Most remarkably, they harnessed the Saros cycle, a pattern of roughly 18 years, to predict lunar eclipses with uncanny accuracy. They might not have grasped the why, but the how was enough to wield significant power, both spiritual and political. For in a world where the heavens and the earthly were deeply intertwined, foreseeing celestial events was akin to peering into the divine plan itself. And let's not forget the zodiac, often attributed to the Greeks, but truly a Babylonian innovation. They divided the sky into 12 equal parts, each tethered to a constellation, laying the groundwork for the zodiac signs that still captivate and guide us today. How profound is it to realize that our modern fascination with astrology finds its roots in these ancient astronomers who looked up and found not just stars, but destiny itself. Ah, indeed, when someone queries your zodiac sign, you can tip your hat to Babylon. Yet what truly distinguishes the Babylonians is their audacious mathematical spirit. With an insatiable curiosity, they charted the dance of planets, even their curious backward steps, employing arithmetic tricks to mimic celestial cycles. Not with geometric models, mind you. That was a gift from the Greeks to come. But arithmetic, it served them well. For practical purposes, it was more than sufficient. They envisioned the universe as a vast ledger of patterns, a colossal clockwork of recurring motions. Their astronomers, far from being mere mystics or priests, were the pioneers of science hunched over clay tablets, translating the cosmic symphony into symbols and numbers. In the quiet of the night, they penned the sky's secrets. Meanwhile, as the Babylonians busied themselves predicting the dance of the heavens, the ancient Egyptians were tethering their civilization to the stars, quite literally. In the cradle of the Nile Valley, astronomy was not merely an academic pursuit, it was survival. At the core of their celestial fixation stood a single brilliant star, Sirius, the shimmering beacon in the night sky. The Egyptians observed something astonishing annually. Just before the Nile's life-giving floods, Sirius would grace the dawn horizon. This phenomenon, the helical rising of Sirius, became the linchpin of their calendar. This was not merely poetic, it was essential. The Nile's waters dictated the rhythm of their crops, and missing that crucial window could spell disaster. Thus, the Egyptians crafted a 365-day solar calendar, segmented into 12 months of 30 days each, with 5 additional days dedicated to festivals. Remarkably, this calendar was a precursor to our modern one, long before Julius Caesar ever pondered calendar reform. But the Egyptians' celestial ambitions didn't end with Sirius. From their temples, they meticulously observed the sun, moon, and stars, aligning their sacred spaces with astronomical precision. The Temple of Karnak, for instance, was so perfectly positioned that the sun would rise directly along its axis, a testament to their profound understanding of the heavens. Could you imagine the awe, the reverence, as they watched the stars align with their world, guiding their lives with celestial precision? During the summer solstice, other temples aligned meticulously with the rising and setting of sacred stars, whispered secrets of the cosmos to those who dared to listen. And then there were the pyramids, the silent sentinels of time. The Great Pyramid of Giza, erected around 2060 BCE, stood as a testament to human ingenuity, aligned almost flawlessly with the cardinal points. Its shafts, perhaps pointing towards Orion and Sirius, suggested a celestial bridge between the earthly realm and the pharaoh's eternal voyage into the afterlife. This was not merely architecture for burial, it was an act of cosmological engineering. The priests of Egypt, serving also as astronomers, did not merely watch the skies for the sake of ritual. No, they sought signs, omens, and the very will of the gods in the stars' dance. Astronomy, theology, and governance were not separate strands, but tightly woven into the fabric of Egyptian life. To rule Egypt was to grasp the sky itself. Imagine, with no telescopes, no lenses, they crafted a system to track time, orient their monumental structures, and predict natural phenomena with patient observation and an unyielding precision. The Egyptians did not gaze at the stars for mere entertainment. They beheld a divine clock ticking with purpose, echoing the very essence of eternity. Meanwhile, deep within the lush jungles of Mesoamerica, before European eyes had even glimpsed the New World, the Maya were constructing one of the most intricate astronomical systems known to humankind. Without the aid of metal tools, wheels, or telescopes, they charted the sun, moon, planets, and stars with a precision that still astonishes scholars today. To the Maya, astronomy was not a mere luxury for the learned. It was the very scaffold upon which their society was built. Their rulers were not just leaders, but cosmic intermediaries. Every significant political or religious event was scheduled in harmony with celestial events. Eclipses, solstices, equinoxes, and the cycles of Venus were not just observed. They were the divine endorsements of power. Their most striking achievement was their meticulous tracking of celestial movements, a testament to a civilization that saw the sky not as a distant spectacle, but as an intimate part of their daily existence. Ah, the enigmatic Venus. The Maya, those brilliant stargazers of the ancient world, were utterly captivated by her. They observed that Venus would vanish and then reappear in the heavens following a mesmerizing cycle of 584 days. This celestial rhythm was not merely observed, it was woven into the very fabric of their lives, influencing their sacred rituals of warfare and the meticulous tracking of time. Delve into the Dresden Codex, a precious relic from the pre-Columbian era, where one finds a Venus table so precise that it charts the planet's path over centuries with an error of less than a day. Their ingenuity didn't halt there. The Maya crafted the long count calendar, a temporal masterpiece capable of dating events across millennia with astonishing accuracy. Imagine they calculated the solar year at about 365 days, a figure that dances closely with our modern calculations. Their calendar systems were not singular, but manifold, running in parallel, like the many threads of a grand tapestry. There was the 260-day sulk in the ritual heart of their society, the 365-day Hab mirroring the solar year, and the long count, the keeper of their historical chronology. And the observatories, without the luxury of glass domes, they turned stone into genius. At Chichen Itza, the El Caracol Observatory stands its windows and alignments meticulously crafted to capture Venus's dance and the sun's journey. Picture this during the equinoxes: staircases and shadows at El Castillo come alive with the serpent shadow descending in a serpentine dance, a spectacle of time and space. The Maya didn't just gaze at the stars, they lived by them. Their rulers were ordained by the cosmos, their temples aligned with the sun's solstices, and their wars choreographed to Venus's travels. They didn't merely read the stars, they wove them into the very essence of their civilization. Now let us shift our gaze to ancient China, where astronomy was not just a science, but a matter of state. Here the emperor, the son of heaven, ruled with the mandate of heaven, a divine right that could be withdrawn if the heavens so decreed. Thus astronomy was both sacred and political, a cosmic mirror reflecting the legitimacy of rule. If the stars shifted, so too could the fortunes of men. As early as 2000 BCE, the diligent eyes of Chinese astronomers were fixed upon the heavens, meticulously charting the celestial ballet. With a methodical care that seems almost reverent, they documented comets, novae, eclipses, sunspots, and the intricate dance of planets. Imagine the excitement when in the annals of the records of the grand historian in the Book of Han, they penned down observations that even today's scholars pore over to authenticate ancient cosmic events. Their most awe-inspiring record, a supernova explosion in 1054 CE, visible in the broad daylight for a staggering 23 days. Oh, how precise were these ancient astronomers! Their meticulous records allowed modern scientists to pinpoint the very remnants of that celestial spectacle now known as the Crab Nebula. But their astronomical prowess was not just about watching the skies. They were innovators too, crafting mechanical marvels like armillary spheres. In gnomons, they measured the sun's altitude and the positions of stars with devices centuries ahead of their time. Consider this: while Europe was still in its astronomical infancy, China boasted functioning water-powered celestial globes and astronomical clocks. Their celestial navigation was structured around 28 lunar mansions, akin to our constellations, guiding not just navigation, but also timekeeping. They ingeniously crafted the Chinese lunar solar calendar, a harmonious blend of lunar months and solar years, still in use today to celebrate traditional festivals like the Lunar New Year. But their contributions didn't stop at mere observation. Eclipses were meticulously recorded and often linked to the fate of dynasties. An unanticipated eclipse could spell disaster for an emperor, suggesting a loss of divine favor, a concept so integral to governance that astronomy wasn't just a scholarly pursuit, it was a pillar of state, a matter of divine right, and a determinant of national destiny. The stars in China did not just mark time, they were the very heartbeat of the empire. They spoke truth, and the empire hearkened to their words. In the cradle of ancient India, astronomy was not a mere isolated study. It was a symphony of philosophy, ritual, mathematics, and metaphysics, all dancing in harmony. Known as Jyotish, the science of light, Indian astronomy initially served to pinpoint auspicious moments for sacred ceremonies, but soon blossomed into one of the most mathematically sophisticated celestial observation systems known to the ancient world. Can you imagine the awe of the Vedic sages as they gazed upon the star-studded skies, their minds alight with wonder? The earliest celestial whispers are found in the Vedas, penned around 1500 BCE. These hallowed texts speak of the sun, the moon, and the intricate dance of planetary cycles alongside the sky's division into 27 nakshatras, or lunar mansions, which became the heart of early Indian sky mapping. These nakshatras, entwined with both myth and meticulous calculation, underpin the astrological charts and calendars that still guide India today. But let's not be fooled by the poetic beauty alone. Indian astronomy was startlingly precise. Ancient scholars crafted models for the solar year that outshone even the later Julian calendar of Rome. The Surya Siddhanta, a seminal astronomical treatise compiled around 500 CE from ancient wisdom, articulates the Earth's axial tilt, the elliptical journeys of planets, and whispers of gravity, centuries before Newton's apple ever fell. Imagine the revolutionary spirit of Aryabhata, who in 499 CE proposed that the Earth spins on its axis daily, a concept scarcely considered elsewhere at that time. His calculations pegged the solar year at 358 days, a mere whisper away from our modern calculations, and he pioneered advanced trigonometric functions to aid in celestial calculations. Indian astronomers, with their minds as vast as the cosmos they studied, invented sophisticated instruments, embraced decimal notation, and employed shadow devices and spheres to measure celestial angles and altitudes. Their observatories were perfectly aligned with solstices, equinoxes, and the grand ballet of planetary conjunctions. Beyond the technical prowess, there was a profound connection to the universe, a bond that transcended mere observation, inviting us to ponder. How did these ancient minds perceive the universe? And what timeless truths did they uncover in their celestial sojourns? Oh, the wonders of Indian astronomy, where celestial achievements were not merely records, but carried an enchanting cosmic grace. The universe was not seen as a mere mechanical entity. No, it was perceived as a grand cycle, an eternal dance of time and space ever unfolding in its infinite beauty. Astronomy in this vibrant culture was not about exerting control over nature, but about finding harmony with it. To understand the heavens was to delve into the essence of one's own soul, a spiritual geometry, where planets did not just traverse the sky, but also journeyed through the very fabric of our being. Contrast this with the ancients of other lands, who might have looked to the stars for guidance, ritual, or mere survival. Yet the ancient Greeks, in their profound curiosity, gazed upwards with a different question in mind. Why? Why do the stars move? Why do planets wander? And could the vastness of the cosmos be understood through the lens of reason? Here, Greek astronomy ignited a transformation in how humanity interacted with the heavens. They did not just observe, they pondered, they theorized, striving to decode the celestial ballet with tools of mathematics, geometry, and philosophy. It all began with Thales of Miletus, who dared to propose that the phenomena of the sky had natural causes, not divine whims. Then came Anaximander, who envisioned our Earth floating in the vast expanse of space unsupported and suggested the heavens themselves formed a sphere. These notions, though simple by today's standards, were nothing short of revolutionary in their time. The true leap forward was made by Pythagoras, who saw the cosmos not as chaos, but as a system of perfect harmony, a symphony of spheres orchestrated by mathematical ratios. His followers believed that the universe could be comprehended through numbers, laying down the bedrock for theoretical astronomy. But it was Aristarchus of Samos in the 3rd century BCE who came tantalizingly close to modern astronomical truth. He proposed a heliocentric model where the sun, not the Earth, was the center of the universe. His ideas, though, ignored for nearly 2 millennia, planted a seed that would eventually sprout with Copernicus. Then came Hipparchus, the father of what would become modern astronomy, whose contributions would echo through the ages, shaping our understanding of the stars and planets in ways that would resonate far beyond the ancient world. With a fervent dedication to the celestial dance above, the ancient Greeks embarked on a journey to unravel the enigmatic patterns of the cosmos. Hipparchus, a name now etched in the annals of time, was a pioneer in this celestial quest. He meticulously crafted the first star catalog, a monumental task that required not only patience, but also an ingenious mind to discern and categorize stars by their luminance. His discovery of the precession of the equinoxes and his development of trigonometric tools to chart the heavens were feats of intellect that left contemporaries and future generations in awe. Imagine, if you will, the precision of his work achieved without the aid of modern telescopes, relying solely on the naked eye and the shadows cast by the stars themselves. Then there was Claudius Ptolemy, whose Almagest became the cornerstone of astronomical thought for over a millennium. He was a master synthesizer, weaving together the threads of Greek, Babylonian, and Egyptian knowledge into a geocentric tapestry. His model, intricate with epicycles and deference, was a testament to human ingenuity, providing a complex yet elegant explanation for the motions of the planets. It was a system that for centuries seemed to hold the universe in its grasp, until the relentless march of science demanded a new paradigm. The Greeks did more than observe. They argued with the heavens, engaging in a dialogue that spanned the realms of logic and myth between what was seen and what was known. By the dawn of the 17th century, when the telescope finally turned its gaze skyward, humanity had already spent millennia deciphering the sky with nothing but keen eyes, the movement of shadows and the alignment of stones. Yet what these ancient civilizations achieved is nothing short of breathtaking. They mapped the stars, followed the planets, predicted eclipses, and erected monuments in perfect alignment with the solstices and equinoxes. All this without the aid of lenses, satellites, or the flick of a switch for light. Each culture, from the Sumerians in Mesopotamia to the Maya in Mesoamerica, from the Chinese and Indians in Asia to the Greeks and Egyptians around the Mediterranean, independently developed their astronomical systems, each rooted in their unique worldview. Despite the vast oceans separating them, they arrived at a shared conclusion: the heavens move with a discernible order, and that order has profound implications for life on Earth. Ancient astronomy was not an esoteric pursuit confined to scholarly enclaves. It was the heartbeat of civilizations influencing agriculture, religion, architecture, politics, and philosophy. It whispered when to sow seeds and when to harvest, when to celebrate and when to reflect. The stars in their silent majesty guided the course of human history. In every culture, the sky was not merely a canvas of stars, but a divine script, a celestial roadmap guiding humanity's understanding of existence. Whether through geocentric theories, mythological tales, or cyclical patterns, each civilization held the cosmos in deep reverent awe. The sky was alive, pulsating with purpose and sanctity, not just a passive observer of human endeavors. Imagine the thrill of discovery when the telescope, a marvel of human ingenuity, unveiled secrets like the moons of Jupiter, the phases of Venus, the sun's mysterious spots, and galaxies sprawling into infinity. Yet it was the ancient observers, with their patient mapping and meticulous records, who laid the groundwork for these revelations. Their curiosity, a beacon through time, has been inherited by us today. Every time we glance at a calendar, navigate with a smartphone, or revel in the solstice, we walk paths they first charted in claystone and papyrus. They did not comprehend the enigmatic black holes or the cosmic microwave background, but their inquiries were profound. They gazed upward, asking the universe its secrets, and in doing so unknowingly became the progenitors of science. Their silent, steadfast queries were etched into the very fabric of the night sky. Due to their legacy, we now possess the instruments to delve not only into the vast expanses of space, but also into the depths of our own origins. Then in the dawn of a new century, a seismic shift occurred. In 1803, a fledgling republic just finding its feet executed a transaction so audacious it doubled its size in a single stroke. The Louisiana Purchase was not merely a land deal, it was a geopolitical earthquake. With a flourish of ink, the United States embraced over 828 square miles from France, an expanse stretching from the Mississippi to the Rockies, setting the stage for 13 future states to emerge from this fertile expanse. The cost a staggering $15 million, translating to a mere 4 cents an acre. Yet the true marvel lay in the unforeseen nature of this acquisition. Not a soul, not even the Americans, anticipated this monumental turn of events. At the time, President Thomas Jefferson's singular ambition was to secure passage to the Mississippi River and the vital port of New Orleans. Prince's Fuckers, 2606. The fledgling nation was utterly reliant on river commerce. Ohio Valley farmers desperately needed to transport their goods southward. Control over New Orleans was not just strategic, it was the economic lifeline for the young United States. Jefferson had instructed his diplomats to offer France up to $10 million for New Orleans and perhaps a smattering of adjacent lands. That was the plan. 12625. But upon arrival, the American envoys were met with an astonishing counter-proposal. Instead of just New Orleans, France offered the entirety of the Louisiana Territory. Why? Because Napoleon Bonaparte's France was realigning its focus. Dreams of a vast North American empire had been shattered by the Haitian Revolution, which had extinguished French hopes in the Caribbean. Once 2647, plagued by disease, rebellion, and escalating tensions with Britain, holding on to Louisiana seemed more a burden than a boon. Napoleon, in need of funds for his ongoing wars, saw no value in swamps and prairies. Confronted with this unexpected boon, the American negotiators eagerly accepted, even without Jefferson's full endorsement. First Tower 27, Euro 08. After all, this was not merely about a port city. This was the Mississippi River, the vast Great Plains, a pathway to the majestic Rocky Mountains, and ultimately control over the very heart of the continent. What Jefferson acquired was not just land. It was a destiny, a vast, uncharted canvas, ripe for westward expansion, national development, and inevitably conflict. While the newspapers heralded this monumental acquisition, a crucial fact was overlooked. Push 2735. This land was not vacant. It was the ancestral home to numerous native nations, each with their own rich histories, intricate alliances, and rightful claims. Thus, a deal struck in Paris would not only redraw maps, but would irrevocably alter the course of history, setting the stage for future struggles and reshaping the destiny of many. Imagine a man crowned with both glory and the burden of empire, standing at the precipice of an audacious decision that would alter the course of continents. Napoleon Bonaparte, the French emperor, found himself ensnared in the relentless grip of warfare across Europe and the Caribbean, not to mention the ever-dwindling coffers of his treasury. The year was 1803, and in a move that left the world gasping, he chose to relinquish a vast expanse of North America to the very nation he once sought to thwart from rising to power. It all began with a clandestine treaty, the Treaty of San Ildefonso, where France had stealthily reclaimed Louisiana from Spain. Napoleon envisioned a grand resurgence of French colonial dominance, with Louisiana serving as the lifeblood for Saint-Domingue. Now Haiti feeding it with wheat meat and essential supplies. But oh, how quickly dreams can crumble. The Haitian Revolution, a fiery uprising led by former slaves under the likes of Toussaint Louverture, turned into a blaze of resistance that even Napoleon's formidable forces could not quench. France, in its hubris, dispatched tens of thousands of soldiers to suppress the revolt, only to watch them perish, not just by the sword, but by the cruel hand of yellow fever. Napoleon lost not only his finest general, but also his imperial dreams of sugar and wealth. With Saint-Domingue slipping into the shadows of independence, Louisiana's strategic importance waned to nothingness, becoming not just irrelevant, but a liability. And with Britain ever the adversary looming with threats of another war, the Louisiana territory became more than just indefensible. It was a potential prize for enemies. Thus, in a stroke of pragmatic genius, Napoleon chose to sell. This was no mere transaction, but a bold, sweeping gesture of strategic retreat. On that fateful day, April 11, 1803, he presented American diplomats Robert Livingston and James Monroe with an offer so astonishing it left them breathless, all of Louisiana, not merely New Orleans, for a mere $15 million. Napoleon, ever the master of the unexpected, had made his move. Napoleon's reasoning was as clear as the ocean waves crashing against the shores of England. He had given the world a maritime adversary that would soon humble the pride of the British Empire. He didn't crave mere currency. His ambition was loftier. He envisioned the United States burgeoning into a formidable power capable of standing toe-to-toe with Britain. The sale of Louisiana was not an act of surrender. It was a masterstroke of strategy. With one stroke of the pen, Napoleon relinquished his dreams of an American empire, altering the destiny of a nation he barely esteemed. What was but an imperial afterthought for him became the springboard for America's westward expansion and the somber prelude to the decline of native sovereignty across the vast continent. Thomas Jefferson, with his heart set on an agrarian utopia, imagined a republic where independent farmers tilled their own soil, united by the ideals of liberty and civic virtue. The Louisiana Purchase should have been the fulfillment of his dream, a testament to his vision. Yet it morphed into a constitutional conundrum. Jefferson, ever the strict constructionist, held that the federal government's powers were to be strictly interpreted from the Constitution. Alas, nowhere in that sacred document was there mention of the power to acquire foreign lands. Imagine Jefferson's dilemma, a deal so tempting a chance to double the nation's expanse for a mere $15 million, stretching from the Mississippi to the Rockies. A once-in-a-civilization opportunity indeed. Yet Jefferson, who feared the specter of federal overreach, found himself wrestling with his principles. Should he, a guardian of constitutional purity, bend the sacred text to justify this monumental acquisition? In the quiet of his study, Jefferson pondered proposing an amendment to legitimize the purchase. But time was not an ally. It marched forward relentlessly. If he dallied, Napoleon might reconsider, or worse, Britain could snatch the territory before the ink could even set on the agreement. Thus Jefferson, in a twist of irony, did something quite unexpected. In a twist of irony, Thomas Jefferson, once a vehement critic of Alexander Hamilton's advocacy for implied powers, found himself embracing the very same principle. He justified the acquisition of the Louisiana Territory as a treaty, a power the Constitution explicitly granted the president, albeit with Senate approval. The Senate, in a resounding show of support, ratified the deal in October 1803, despite Jefferson's quiet reservations. He defended his actions as a critical move for the survival and security of the young republic. Thus, Jefferson, the guardian of constitutional purity, became the mastermind behind the largest peaceful land acquisition in American history. Critics branded him a hypocrite, yet Jefferson viewed his decision as a necessary compromise, bending the Constitution to preserve, not destroy, the Republic. In this act, Jefferson laid down a precedent that would echo through the corridors of American expansion. The federal government could now acquire land through treaties even without direct constitutional endorsement, setting a stage for the westward expansion into lands inhabited by indigenous peoples. The Louisiana Purchase was signed, sealed, and ratified, but the true nature of what the United States had acquired remained shrouded in mystery. The land was an expanse of uncharted wilderness, dotted with unknown rivers, mountains, flora, and faces. To unravel this enigma, in 1804, President Jefferson commissioned what would become one of the most storied explorations in American lore, the Corps of Discovery, led by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. Their mission was bold and multifaceted: explore the new territory, forge alliances with native nations, catalog the land's resources, and above all, seek a water route to the Pacific Ocean. Jefferson's vision was of a Northwest Passage, a waterway connecting the Atlantic to the Pacific that could revolutionize trade. Alas, such a passage was but a dream. Yet what Lewis and Clark discovered would redefine the American identity and their understanding of the continent. They embarked on their journey with hopes high and eyes wide open to the unknown. Ah, the mighty Mississippi, a river of dreams and discoveries. In the balmy month of May 1804, an intrepid band of over 30 men, led by the indomitable duo of Lewis and Clark, embarked from the bustling river town of St. Louis. With spirits high and determination unwavering, they set their sights upstream, venturing into lands where the foot of an American settler had yet to tread. Imagine the wonder as they cataloged over 100 new species of animals and nearly 200 plants, each discovery a testament to the uncharted beauty of this new world. But let's not forget the unsung hero of this saga, the luminous Sacagawea, a Shoshone woman whose journey with her French-Canadian husband added a profound layer to this exploration. She was more than a translator, she was the very symbol of peace. Picture her a beacon of calm amidst the unknown, her presence with her child, a silent declaration to the native tribes. We come in peace. Her deep understanding of the land and her diplomatic finesse were not just assets but lifelines guiding the expedition through perilous terrains and fostering alliances that were crucial for survival. For over 2 years, this valiant group traversed over 8,000 miles by boat, by horse, by foot, their journey culminating in the majestic sight of the Pacific Ocean in November 1805. They built a fort to weather the winter, a temporary home in this vast wild expanse. Upon their return in 1806, they didn't bring tales of a mythical Northwest Passage, but something arguably more precious, a vivid, detailed account of the lands and the peoples that lay within America's newly acquired territory. Yet what did this mean? Jefferson had bought a mystery, and through Lewis and Clark, this mystery began to take shape. Their reports, filled with wonder, also cast a long shadow. The dreams of westward expansion they inspired would soon exert pressure on the indigenous nations, heralding an era of conquest under the guise of discovery. To the American settlers and politicians, the Louisiana Purchase was a canvas of opportunity, a vast untapped land ripe for farm cities and ambition. But to the native nations who had called this land home for centuries, it was the beginning of erasure, a complex tapestry of cultures, languages, and histories now facing an uncertain future. Across the vast, untamed expanse of the Louisiana Territory, the indigenous peoples from the Ojibwe to the Cheyenne, the Comanche to the Mandan, thrived in harmony with the land. These sovereign nations, with their intricate networks of trade and alliances, had been the stewards of this territory long before the shadow of a European flag darkened their horizons. Châteauguay, 36 to 24. Yet, in the ambitious gaze of Jefferson and the future architects of the American Republic, this land was not a home, but a blank canvas, vast and underutilized, beckoning for American settlement. The native nations, however, were not participants in this grand vision. They were not consulted, not informed, and certainly not compensated. One day they were the sovereign rulers of their domains. The next they found themselves subjects of an expanding empire. Jefferson's vision was clear: assimilate or relocate. In his private correspondences, he chillingly suggested that as settlers pushed westward, indigenous peoples must follow suit or face extinction. 136:48. This was not yet termed removal, But the seeds of this grim policy were already sprouting. The return of Lewis and Clark bearing tales of boundless land and untold riches only fueled this relentless push. Crackle, 37:14. The federal government, now armed with this knowledge, began a campaign of treaties, many of which were as deceptive as they were coercive, aimed at claiming land and further marginalizing these original inhabitants. Where treaties failed, military might or the silent, deadly march of disease and displacement took over. The Louisiana Purchase, in the eyes of the United States, was a monumental step in its westward expansion, a precursor to the doctrine of manifest destiny. Yet for the indigenous peoples, this was no transaction, but a grievous trespass. Maps were redrawn, boundaries erased, and a tide of settlers flowed in, not for trade or coexistence, but to claim to conquer and to transform the landscape forever. 13802, it was a legal foundation laid on moral quicksand, a cost measured in the lives and lands of those who had called this territory home from time immemorial. And so the wave of expansion surged forth unstoppable in its momentum. The Louisiana Purchase was celebrated as a monumental triumph, a peaceful conquest that nearly doubled the expanse of the United States. Yet beneath the surface of this seemingly pristine transaction, the earth trembled with the seeds of discord. Expansion, though celebrated, bore a cost not measured in currency, but in the currency of human strife, displacement, and the erosion of cultural sanctity. As the ink dried on the treaties, American settlers, driven by dreams of fertile fields, liberty and prosperity, poured into the West. They ventured into territories still vibrant with the life and traditions of indigenous nations. Behind them, the federal government marched, planting its flags with forts, roads, and administrative outposts, asserting its dominion over the new lands. This expansion laid the groundwork for an inevitable clash, a confrontation between two starkly different views of the land, one as a resource to be claimed and tilled, the other as a sacred entity to be revered and coexisted with. Conflict, of course, was inevitable. What began as skirmishes soon escalated into full-blown wars. Treaties once inked with hope were shattered like fragile glass. The frontier, like a relentless tide, pushed ever westward, driven by the might of rifles, the iron of railroads, and the unyielding ambition of a burgeoning nation. But the toll was not paid by indigenous peoples alone. The Louisiana Territory's acquisition intensified a moral dilemma that would eventually tear the fabric of the nation apart: slavery. Southern leaders with visions of sprawling plantations saw the vast new lands as fertile ground for expanding their economic empire. Cotton and sugar, those southern staples, flourished in the territory's soil, and enslaved labor was deemed indispensable to turning a profit. This brought forth a question that echoed through the halls of Congress, haunting the nation's conscience. Would these new lands embrace the chains of slavery? This question did not just challenge the nation's moral compass. It stretched America's political fabric to its very limits, leading to the Missouri Compromise, fueling sectional tensions, and ultimately igniting the flames of civil war. The Louisiana Purchase did not merely expand America's borders, it tested its soul, pushing its political and ethical boundaries to the brink. And there, amidst the vast promising lands, the seeds of America's future conflicts were sown. The aftermath of claiming the land bore environmental repercussions that were as palpable as they were devastating. The rivers once free-flowing were dammed, the vast plains plowed under, and the once thriving buffalo herds driven to the brink of extinction. This transformation, swift and irreversible, forever altered a landscape once tenderly shaped by fire, the rhythmic movement of herds, and the wisdom of indigenous stewardship. Now, what stood in its place was a fragmented tableau of farms, fences, and the scars of industrial extraction. In the act of seizing this land, the United States inadvertently embraced a legacy of consequences, a legacy that reverberates through contemporary dialogues on land rights, tribal sovereignty, and the quest for reparations. Yes, the land was purchased, but at what true cost? Even as the ink on the Louisiana Purchase Treaty dried, a profound question loomed. How does one govern a territory so expansive it seemed to defy all bounds of imagination? Stretching across what would eventually become 15 states from Louisiana to Montana and from the Dakotas to Colorado, this land in 1803 was a realm of boundless possibility, yet devoid of roads, towns, and overwhelmed by competing claims. The initial task was monumental: surveying and mapping this vast unknown. Pioneering expeditions led by the likes of Lewis and Clark Zebulon Pike and others laid the foundational sketches. Following closely were the cartographers, land speculators, and military engineers, meticulously drawing lines that would evolve into county boundaries, reservations, and state borders. This was no longer an open, interconnected indigenous world, but a grid of rectangles compartmentalized by human ambition. Congress, in its quest to organize this sprawling territory, established military districts and then territories, each with governors appointed by the federal government. This administrative framework echoed the patterns set by the Northwest Ordinance. However, as territories grew in population, they could petition for statehood, a process not always marked by logic or fairness. The formation of Missouri in 1821, the first state from this acquisition, was a catalyst for national discord. Oh, the irony in seeking to govern the nation found itself grappling with the very essence of its identity and justice. In a twist of fate, driven by Missouri's desire to cling to the chains of slavery, the Missouri Compromise emerged, etching an imaginary line across the expanse of the Louisiana Purchase. Oh, how that line would linger in the shadows of American politics for decades to come. Each new state's entry into the Union threatening to unbalance the delicate dance between North and South. As if in defiance of this legal boundary, white settlers swarmed into these uncharted territories, often outpacing the very laws meant to govern them. They laid claim to the land through preemption, squatting, and increasingly through the federal government's own land grants. Meanwhile, the indigenous peoples bound by treaties yet betrayed by time watched as their lands were reclassified with the stroke of a pen. Their territories became mere territories, then open land, then the farms of others. As the maps of America filled with new names and borders, they simultaneously erased the ancient trails, the seasonal migrations, the very essence of indigenous life. Jefferson City, Baton Rouge, Fort Pierre, these names replaced the sacred, the historical, the indigenous. These borders in this new vision of America were not merely lines on a map. No, they were instruments of control tools to claim, divide, sell, and govern lands that just years prior had known no president, no state, no empire. The Louisiana Purchase did not just redraw America's borders, it redefined its very soul. With a single diplomatic flourish, the United States transformed from a nation clinging to the Atlantic's edge to a vast continental power, reaching out towards the unknown. This was the first bold step in what would become known as Manifest Destiny, setting the stage for a century of expansion, conquest, and relentless reinvention. Politically, this acquisition established a groundbreaking precedent. The federal government could acquire new lands through treaties even without explicit constitutional guidance. This precedent would echo in the acquisitions of Florida, Texas, Oregon, Alaska, and Hawaii. The United States was no longer just a country. It had become a collector of territories, a nation forever gazing westward. Culturally, this expansion fed the American psyche with dreams of endless possibility, igniting a fire of ambition that would burn through the ages. Could this land, now so vast and varied, truly hold the promise of liberty and justice for all? Or would it merely extend the reach of oppression and exclusion? Ah, the Louisiana Purchase. A new chapter in the American saga unfolded, one that painted the rugged frontier with tales of intrepid settlers and fearless explorers, their hearts aflame with dreams of boundless opportunity. Yet intertwined with these tales of aspiration was a darker narrative, a harrowing echo of Native American displacement, broken promises, and forced exile. Economically, the impact was nothing short of monumental. The Mississippi River transformed into the lifeblood of American trade, pulsating with commerce. Cities like St. Louis, New Orleans, and Kansas City burgeoned, becoming indispensable hubs of economic activity. Vast fertile plains yielded to the plow, and the discovery of precious metals and minerals ignited an industrial fervor, turning swathes of the acquisition into bustling centers of growth and innovation. But here lies the paradox, the heart-wrenching contradiction at the core of the Louisiana Purchase. It epitomized the American dream: opportunity, expansion, freedom. And yet it also bore the scars of America's darkest sins: dispossession, the perpetuation of slavery, and imperial overreach. Triumph was written on lands wrested from others, often through violent means. Today, the legacy of the Louisiana Purchase shapes the very landscape of America. Where once buffalo roamed free, now highways stretch. Sacred sites have given way to fields of golden wheat. Yet beneath this new veneer, The historical memory of the purchase lingers, a poignant reminder not merely of a transaction, but of a pivotal moment that irrevocably altered the United States. The world, too, felt the reverberations of this monumental deal. But at what cost? Was it merely a financial transaction, or did it exact a toll in human lives, lost cultures, and irrevocably altered landscapes? The Louisiana Purchase was far more than a mere land acquisition. It was a defining moment marking America's transition from a tentative republic on the eastern seaboard to a burgeoning empire reaching audaciously into its heartland. The ink may have dried in Paris, but the echoes of that agreement still whisper across prairies, rivers, and through generations. For indeed, what price can one truly put on the transformation of a nation, on the dreams fulfilled and the dreams shattered? In the United States, the concept of expansion wasn't merely a fleeting thought. It was a spark that ignited a new national confidence, a fervent belief that growth was not just desirable, but an inevitable destiny. This belief, hardening into policy as manifest destiny, propelled the nation towards the Pacific Ocean and beyond. Oh, how this vision cemented a model of power, one constructed on the pillars of land acquisition, displacement, and development. The West, once shrouded in mystery, now stood as a clear target, an open invitation for settlers, speculators, and politicians to seize opportunity by uprooting what already existed. But what of the native nations? For them, the transformation was nothing short of catastrophic. The lands they had lived on, traded through, fought for, and honored were suddenly claimed not by an invading army, but by a distant government that merely drew a line on a map and declared ownership. No negotiations, no consent, just a new set of rules imposed upon them. The arrival of American settlers did not just alter landscapes, it accelerated cycles of violence, forced removals, and cultural devastation. Treaties were made and broken reservations were established, bison herds decimated, and languages silenced. When the dust of these tumultuous changes settled, the native presence in the Louisiana Territory was largely confined, silenced, or erased, though never truly extinguished. Yet the legacy of the Louisiana Purchase is multifaceted. From its vast expanse rose cities, economies, and infrastructure that sculpted the modern United States. The rivers it granted became lifelines, the natural resources fueled industrial growth, and the space it opened fostered innovation, diversity, and reinvention. But beneath this prosperity, the shadow of that deal still lingers, a paradox of a bold diplomatic victory and a blueprint for displacement. It's a narrative woven with threads of growth and grief, ambition, and amnesia. Indeed, the Louisiana Purchase made the United States what it is today, but it also forced a reckoning that echoes into the present. How do you cherish a homeland you neither chose nor can ever revisit? Oh, the bittersweet symphony of belonging. This poignant inquiry, my dear viewers, marks the end of our heartfelt journey together. Your unwavering support has been the lifeblood of this series. As we conclude, I invite you to share your reflections in the comments below. Did this resonate with you? Let's keep the conversation alive. Like, share, and subscribe to join our family of passionate storytellers. Thank you for watching, for your engagement, and for being part of this emotional odyssey. Until next time, keep the spirit of storytelling alive in your hearts.